For those of you joining us, we'll start the meeting a few minutes after 5 to allow more people to get into the meeting.
We get to pause. You guys relax. Take care of you.
For those of you joining us, we'll start the meeting in a couple of minutes.
Megan, do you want to share with the group what you shared in the chat box, so in case if someone missed it?
Yeah, I was going to go through that when I do the welcome.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah. No, it's okay.
Would you like to begin, Megan?
Sure. Thanks, Nick. Welcome everyone to the second public involvement meeting for the East Wells Street Pavement Replacement Project from North Broadway Avenue to North Prospect Avenue. This is a Wisconsin Department of Transportation and City of Milwaukee Department of Public Works project. I am Megan O'Connor and I work for the City of Milwaukee, and I will serve as the project liaison for residents and businesses throughout the life of this project. While more people are signing in, I just want to point out that in the chat box that we have an attendance form. If you could please complete it, it would just help us capture who's in attendance tonight. And just some meeting tips to go over. If you can keep your microphone, your phone or your computer microphone on mute, just to help prevent background noise, that would be much appreciated. And then during the Q&A, you can hit the raise your hand button if you would like to speak, and we will call on you. Feel free to submit any questions or comments as well in this chat box. We are recording this meeting and we'll post it on the project website, which is milwaukee.gov/DPW/wells. For those who are hard of hearing, there is closed captioning available on the desktop version of Microsoft Teams. To enable it, please just click the 3 dots at the top of your window and then turn on live captions. With us tonight, we have Christine Hanna with the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, as well as Nicholas Goodwin with the City of Milwaukee Department of Public Works, who are, both of them are the project managers overseeing the Wells Street pavement replacement project. Christine, please introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Like Megan said, my name is Christine Hanna. I work for the Wisconsin Department of Transportation, and I'm working with the city to oversee this pavement replacement project. Nick?
Yes. Do you want me to take it from here?
No, if you want to introduce yourself and we'll go through the agenda.
Sorry. I'm Nick Goodwin, project manager for City of Milwaukee, Department of Public Works major projects.
All right. Thank you, Nick. So like you see on the screen here, this is the agenda of how we're going to be holding this meeting. We'll start by the project overview, what the current existing condition for the roadway is, some of the design options and alternatives we're going to be sharing with you, and finally, we'll open it for questions and comments. So note, this is connecting Highway 32, and this is a minor arterial roadway, and it's on Wells Street, and it starts from North Broadway to North Prospect Avenue. So what is the scope of work? The scope of work is pretty much remove and replace pavement within face-to-face of the curb. So meaning what? So there's going to be new curb and gutter, driveway approaches are going to be replaced, a new sidewalk if need to be, and ADA, we're going to be replacing all ADA pedestrian curb ramps. Also, we're going to be upgrading any drainage structures or any traffic signals, and as well as street lighting. The goals of this project is to make the travel lane safer and comfortable for everyone, improve conditions for walking and biking and pedestrians, upgrading any pavement surfaces to make it more smoother and more comfortable for all mode of travelers, and increase public space for commercial and any dining establishments. So funding, how is this project going to be funded? Construction funded is about between $4.5 to $5 million dollars. It will be invested in this project. 45% of it is going to be shared federal and state funds. The 55% is City of Milwaukee funds. We are anticipating some assessment to property owners, minor real estate acquisition. What does that mean? So pretty much when we're replacing curb ramps, the contractor needs some space to work. So we'll be having some temporary limited easement for them to step on the private properties to complete the work, but not full acquisition will be anticipated as of today. This is the tentative schedule. Of course, everything changed nowadays. So February 2021 is when we had the first community meeting. We gathered information and expertise to make sure that we are in the right design pattern. Summer of 2021 which is the second community meeting, and we're going to be doing design alternative, and this is where we are today. So this is the second community meeting. And the third one would happen in the year of 2023, which is going to be the construction meeting. So we're going to present the staging. So if there is any conflict with traveling public and parking or so forth, we'll inform the public how we're going to be handling this during construction. So existing condition and design options. Nick, you want to take it from here?
Sure, thanks, Christine. So this is Wells Street right now, existing conditions between Broadway and Van Buren. Right now, the existing roadway width is 60 feet wide. This is on the west end of the project where average daily traffic is about 5,200 vehicles per day. There is 2 driving lanes and a left turn lane, as well as 2 bike lanes and 2 parking lanes, and 10-foot full walk. And you can kind of see the pictures down below that illustrate that as well. Parking usage in this area averages out to 26%. It's higher in some stretches and lower in others. East Wells Street, Broadway to Van Buren. This is the first alternative, option A. Option A, we remove the left turn lanes for long stretches. There might be still a small left turn lane at some of the intersections, but they're not going to be block long turn lanes anymore. And this will still provide 2 11-foot driving lanes, 2 5-foot bicycle lanes, and 2 7-foot parking lanes. The additional space will be added to sidewalk and terrace area, so there'll be room for green space and trees. And then the total walk space would be 13 feet. It may look like this 5-foot sidewalk seating and 8-foot sidewalk, but it may just be in some areas 13 feet of sidewalk. I'll go to the next option, option B. So it's basically the same thing, very similar. It's just now we would be considered 2 feet wider to have wider parking lanes, so that we're meeting standard design widths. But some things that could be looked at is how much space do we want to give to terrace area, or if we wanted to have wider sidewalk. But basically, it's very similar to option A, only that it instead of a 46-foot roadway, which option A has, now it would be 48. So this is the existing conditions on wells between Van Buren and Prospect. Right now it's a 44-foot roadway with 2 driving lanes and 2 parking lanes. You have the 9-foot grass terrace and the 8-foot walk on one side and 6-foot walk on the other. So not on this end of the project, the traffic gets cut in half. It's roughly 2,600 vehicles per day, and the average parking usage is roughly 50%. So this is option A for this segment. This has 2 driving lanes, 2 marked bicycle lanes, and 2 parking lanes. That fits within the 44 feet. We wouldn't be narrowing, we'd be maintaining the same width. To use this cross section, we would need special approval, because generally you need wider than, usually driving lanes are 11 feet, and next to 5-foot bike lane and a 7-foot parking lane. So generally you have at least 46 feet in width to have this cross section. So to approve this, we would need special approval from WSDOT. But I just wanted to present this as a possibility to stay within the scope of the project and still provide the parking that's out there, new bicycle accommodations, and then the driving lanes. Option B, this one would widen the street by 2 feet, which is right now outside the scope of the project. A pavement replacement project is not supposed to widen the road. So if we were to go with something like this to get standard widths, we would impact the terrace area a little bit, and but we would have the standard driving lane widths with the bike lane and the parking lane. Option C, we would remove parking from one side and then have 1 8-foot parking lane, and then you have 2 6-foot bicycle lanes and the 2 12-foot driving lanes. So with this one, like I said, we lose one parking from one side. The average use in this segment is around 50%. overall. Some blocks were higher, some were lower. So that's this option. Something to mention that this project is near historic and archaeological sites. On the archaeological sites are on both ends of the project, and we're right through a historical district. So if anyone in the comments or discussions section want to add any information to this, you're more than welcome. So that's pretty much it. We want to talk about the design options, what everyone thought, what did you like? Did you like the additional public space for sidewalk or patio seating space between Broadway and Van Buren? Can parking be consolidated to one side east of Van Buren? Is there anything else you'd like to see out there? So this is the point where you can kind of chime in, talk about the options, what you liked, or if you had questions, and then based on the input received, we will move proposed design forward.
Thanks, Nick. So what we'll do is start with people who have their hands raised, and then we'll monitor the chat box. Aaron, I see that your hand is raised, so go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Hi. So I'm Erin. I live downtown. I'm about 3 blocks from Wells Street, where this project is going to be. I have a 3-year-old, and one of the reasons we love living downtown is walkability and bikeability. He just started riding a bike a couple months ago. We've been biking all over the place. So I absolutely love to see the expansion of the sidewalk and the public spaces. Definitely getting a toddler across a 60-foot roadway has been really challenging. I want to just add one thing, though. These bike lanes that you're proposing, I won't use them. And I definitely wouldn't put my toddler on them. We need to see more protected bike lanes like the ones that are on Kilbourne along Cathedral Square. I'm glad, I'm very happy to see that they're adding more sidewalk, but I want everyone to be aware of that we need protected bike lanes. Otherwise, I'll continue to use the sidewalk.
Thank you, Aaron.
Just looking at the chat, some people have chimed in agreeing that that they ride through downtown a lot, and cyclist safety improvements are of interest. So thank you, Aaron, for saying that. I do see another hand raised. Let me just go back to our list. Kevin, if you want to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I was just wondering, especially kind of on that comment, given the very low volume east of Van Buren, is there any thought to narrowing it and making it, I think the one of the terms is a yield street, but basically making it a much narrower street and feel more like a residential street where being in the lane is comfortable because it's a 15-mile-an-hour road instead of trying to make it a highway with a bike lane.
So what you said is correct in that the volumes are very low, especially east of Van Buren, which is why on-street bicycle accommodations are being considered. Generally, higher level bicycle accommodations like protected lanes are considered more in where there's higher speeds and more traffic. In Wells Street, it's a low speed, lower traffic roadway. And as part of our projects, we do consider complete streets, and meaning all modes of traffic. Generally, what that means is giving a lane or some kind of accommodation to the bicyclists. So narrowing this segment to not provide that separated lane is not really something that we made as an option, just because as far as the complete streets are concerned, we give the bicycles their own accommodations where it's applicable, like Wells Street.
Just to follow up, so in the chat box, Kevin said that the point is that a narrow road would be a slower and safer for people and bikes over an organized road with more pavement and faster drivers. And I don't know who submitted this comment, but a striped lane is in complete streets. You know they're dangerous. Any dedicated cyclist knows they're trash. This person has friends who won't bike precisely because of these low effort designs. Slower is better. We definitely want slower drivers out there. So thank you, David. I don't see any hands raised, but Aaron, you, not to call on you, but you previously mentioned like dangerous or uncomfortable crossing intersections. Were there particular ones that we should be looking at?
I mean, just in general, like Water Street is very, very wide. Not necessarily on Wells, but just anytime I have to cross a 60-foot road, I mean, it's like I have to, get down and say, okay, we're crossing the street. We have to go fast to get across in time. And I've had several like near accidents where cars almost hit my 3-year-old when we were in a crosswalk or even on a sidewalk. So I just think we need much more bike infrastructure overall that's protected. Because even if they're driving relatively slow, I can still be injured, and I'm on a bike, I'm completely unprotected. So I quite frankly I'm not going to do it. And I mean, with children, absolutely not. The more like adventurous cyclists will do it. But if you really want to have more people biking, which is good for the city and reduces traffic and good for public health, then we need to have a whole, web of protected bike lanes. And if whatever you choose to do now is going to be how it is on this street for a long time. So if you can't make that happen now, then it's just going to be even longer decades until we have a good system of bike infrastructure in this city.
Thank you. I do see Rebecca's hand is raised if you want to unmute your microphone.
Yeah, I wanted to ask Aaron if, with the concern crossing the street, are you maybe suggesting, I know maybe this is something you might be getting to, I don't know, maybe this is not your thought process, or something like a bump out so that you have less distance to
I'd love to see that more for sure. And also just, I mean, anytime that they're like, reducing the width of the street and adding more sidewalk definitely helps. But I'd love to see more bump outs as well.
Thank you.
Nick, one message or question. Will you fix Wells and Prospect to allow crossing on both sides of Wells?
To allow, Scott, are you on the call?
Yeah, I sure am. Yes, with this project, we do plan on adding a north crosswalk at the intersection of Wells and Prospect. Right now, there is not an ADA accessible ramp out there, which prevents us from adding crosswalk signals at the intersection of Wells and Prospect. But with this project, yes, we do plan on upgrading that so that there are 2 crosswalks crossing Prospect there on the east side of the project.
Thanks, Scott. Does anybody have anything that they want to add about the importance of parking, especially between Van Buren and Prospect, or if it's not as important to you?
Hello? Hello, can anyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hi, I'm just driving in the car. and coming home from work, so I don't have my computer screen pulled up. So sorry about that. But I guess my comment was that I was hoping that we wouldn't have those parking lanes where I think they're on Kilbourne, like behind City Hall. There's like parking. There's the street parking and then a bike lane and then the sidewalk. I think that those are actually kind of dangerous, and I'd prefer to not have any of those. I know that doesn't seem like an option here, which is good, but I'm just trying to verify that that's the case because I can't see your drawings.
You are correct. We didn't have any options where we put the bicycle lanes inside of the parking lanes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. That's my only comment. And I was also wondering if maybe for Aaron, would it be better if we also painted the bike lanes, not just the two solid white lines, but like in Wauwatosa, they have like an actual green bike path, and I think that's another way to improve safety.
Yeah,
Can we
I
do
mean,
something like that?
my top choice would be to have lane like raised up next to the sidewalk, like I've seen in other countries, like next to the sidewalk, but it's dedicated bike lane. But I don't personally, like, I'm not gonna bike with like cars like driving right past me, even if it's painted.
Okay.
David, I see your hand raised. You can unmute your microphone.
Hey, I guess, sorry if I sound abrasive on this, but it's frustrating to continually see you guys proposing these outdated striped bike lanes. I mean, nobody else with good cycle infrastructure uses them. So I guess my question is, why did you guys not consider any protected cycle track or even just parking protected like we have on Kilbourne? I mean, it would literally cost nothing more to build it.
I think that when we look at, well, one, the bicycle lanes that we do have out here in the city are used.
I mean, I'll speak to, I bike thousands of miles all over Milwaukee all the time. You know what I don't use? I almost never use striped bike lanes because they're in the door zone and they're adjacent to high-speed traffic. They're just not safe. They're not good. I'll bike in the traffic lane. It's safer. I'm so frustrated to see you guys keep proposing this. I mean, I don't understand why. I don't know if you guys look at best practices here, but I'm just my wits end here.
David, Nick, if you allow me to answer that. So again, David, this is Christine Hanna from the DOT, and I can see in the chat box you're not really fond of DOT. So
no, because you guys just propose infrastructure like this over and over. I mean, it's bad.
Okay. So these practices that you are referring to are federal practices.
What about the NACTO design guides, which many places are using to design infrastructure?
May I speak?
Sure.
Okay. So these projects are funded by federal and state funds. In order for us to implement those typical sections and those designs, we have to abide by those standards and the federal guidelines.
Can you
may not like them very well, and you may have all the right to propose anything, and would love to hear from you. And if you have any links or something from that sort, you can share with us.
I already shared the NACTO link, but
oh, I can see it now. All right,
I live in Madison, and I'm frequently biking in Chicago, where they have infrastructure of the type I'm talking about. So I don't see why they're able to do it. I'm sure their projects are equally federally funded, and I mean, if that's the case, I would like to see a citation of the federal regulation or state regulation that says you cannot build, protected cycle track with federal funding, because I'm incredulous that it's the case.
I did not say that, David. I did not say that. What I'm saying is what you see on the screen in front of you is following federal standards. It's not.
Okay, I get that, but it just seems like low effort. I mean, I'm sorry, but as a cyclist who bikes to work on this street almost every day, I will not use those lanes. They're not good. They're not safe anywhere.
Okay, we heard you very well. Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll second that. Paint versus stay live. People are going to get doored, and it's fatal.
Somebody, I can't hear whoever's talking.
it was something about with the doors being the door zone. But I didn't catch all of it. I do see Jose's hand is raised. If you would like to go ahead.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I mean, I don't want to rehash too many things that have already been covered, but I guess I would just like to state my support for, protected bike infrastructure. If let's just say I look forward to the day where we as a city and ideally the federal standards are updated, because paint is just frankly not bike infrastructure. And, I understand that those are the standards now, but just because they're the standards does not mean that they're best practice. Clearly, the federal standards need to be updated. So yeah, I understand the realities. I understand the proposals. I'd like the sidewalk widening. I'd like the better access for pedestrians. It's an improvement over what we have, no doubt. But just painted bike lanes in car door zones are dangerous, frankly. Thank you.
One comment that I would like to add, and I appreciate everybody's feedback and input, is this is one thing that we look at when proposing bicycle accommodations is connectivity to other routes. This is a less than a half a mile stretch that connects to some on-street bicycle accommodations further down Wells, and it's kind of spotty west of here as well. And then when we're coming up with our alternatives, we are balancing the needs of all users. And when we look at some of the planning documents that Department of City Development has put together, we really are trying to focus on the pedestrian access, the pedestrian aspect of this corridor. That's why a lot of the width has gone to the sidewalk. We have Cathedral Square right here, and we're working with them for their Frame the Park project. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of, we were getting questioned on how we come up with our alternatives, and that's pretty much something that we consider when it comes to bicycle accommodations. Is the connectivity, what are we connecting to? Is it a major route? And then we also have to consider and balance needs for all the users and keep our funding and budget in mind as well.
So we have a few hands raised. Jose, you can go ahead again.
Yeah, I just wanted to quickly follow up on that. I get it. This is a very short road. And maybe, frankly, maybe you're right. Maybe this isn't the best one for the sort of protected bike infrastructure that a lot of people are asking for. But I guess if that's the case, we need to start a citywide network somewhere. We have a couple spotty attempts here or there. And obviously this is beyond the scope of the project. Maybe there needs to be, maybe the city needs to put together a plan, a network of roads that, will be included in a citywide bike infrastructure plan when those roads are redone. So, I get it. It's a short road. You want to focus on walking and pedestrians, and that's all great. But, it's just been years now of people asking for real protected bike infrastructure, and what we have gotten has been few and far between us, is what I would say. So thank you for the time, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. David, you can go ahead and unmute your microphone.
Okay, thank you. So yeah, going back to the policy, I just actually browsed through the city's Millennial Task Force report, and one of the key recommendations was for the city to actually adopt the NACTO design guides and best practices for street design. So I mean, obviously it doesn't apply to Woodstock, but for Milwaukee, I mean, that's actually a recommendation that local government has come to. It's not official policy or law yet, but clearly it's something that people are aware of. So I just wanted to add that.
Yeah, David and I have a local program project on Howard Avenue where we are proposing raised protected bike lanes. And in that segment, we have between 12 and 22,000 vehicles, and speeding is an issue, and protected bicycle lanes are definitely needed in that segment. And here, if we proposed raised bicycle lanes between Van Buren and Prospect, you'd probably wipe out every single tree in the terrace because you need the bike buffer zone. So you're talking full mature trees, and that's going to be an issue with a lot of people. So it's just some things that we have to look at. Yes, we want to provide safe and usable bicycle accommodations, but we also have to look at the other impacts and the other users and stakeholders of this roadway cross section.
David, did you want to continue? I see your hand is still up.
So I guess I'm curious on the tree comment, because say you flipped the parking lane and the bike lane, just like Kilbourne is, and even just plastic pylons and paint with a parking buffered protected lane. Why would that require any additional roadway space? And I mean, if it's the case that you guys are going to just put these striped lanes down, I would rather not see a bike lane at all. I'd rather see a narrower traffic lane where bikes and traffic share the same lane. It's quite frankly safer.
Generally, when you have the bike lane that's inside of or on the outside along the curb, you need also a buffer area between that and the parking lane as well. So the space, we would need to widen the roadway or lose a parking lane to do that.
But he's also saying, though, just no bike lanes and bring in the curb to just narrow the entire roadway.
Right, but we're not considering no bike lane accommodations because as part of Complete Streets, we have to.
Okay, let's go to Rebecca because I see her hand is raised, and then we'll follow up with David again.
One thing about, I do like raised bike lanes, but one thing that needs to be considered, and I've had discussions with wayfinding coach from Vision Forward, is with the raised bike lanes, how do you alert the white cane users when they're getting to an intersection and that they're going to have to cross another lane, the bike lane, to actually get to the curb cut? So that's something that needs to be considered in that process too with raised bike lanes.
It also leads to more difficulty with snow removal as well.
Yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. David, go ahead and unmute your microphone.
I'll save my comment for a bit.
Okay. Chris Squires.
There we go. Yeah, thanks. So, for those that don't know, I work with WISTAT. I'm the regional bike and pedestrian coordinator for Southeast Wisconsin, and I know a couple people mentioned or asked about NACDO and other guidance, and I guess I can't speak to what may or may not be involved when it comes to cost share between the state and the city, but just to clarify, WISTAT has in the past referenced and utilized NACDO as a resource, and I'm not aware of anything that prevents us on projects in general from utilizing protected bike lanes and raised bike lanes. I think somebody pointed out in the chat, project like this, it would certainly impact other portions of the facility, be it parking or the terrace or the sidewalk or so forth, but it is something that can be considered on WISTAT's projects. Just wanted to clarify that for everyone.
Chris, if you don't mind staying unmuted, just looking at some of the chat regarding parking, since it's underutilized. What if there was an opportunity to reduce parking to add space for protected bike lanes without widening the road and removing trees while still supporting the businesses in the area?
Are you asking if that's something that can be considered?
Yeah, or I mean, you, Nick, and Christine. I'm just reading
Sure.
the chat, and I figured since you just had your microphone,
Oh, sure.
you could stay unmuted.
Yeah, again, yeah, generally speaking, that's certainly an alternative that we consider on many projects. I know Nick touched a little bit about on the parking usage here. It's something that, would get evaluated case by case, but that is certainly something, and Nick mentioned, complete streets. There's state and federal complete streets requirements, and part of that requires the evaluation of alternatives just like that, and the trade-offs involved, in minimizing other portions of the overall roadway before omitting accommodations. But again, there are trade-offs to each of those things, and that's part of that alternatives evaluation process that every project goes through.
So kind of to weigh on what Nick and Chris have said, and David, there is a process for us to figure out what we can and we cannot accommodate on the roadway. This is the very step of it. The very first step is to figure out what the public are in need of, or what they are seeing, what works and what doesn't. There is no determination are going to be done at this point. We are in the process of data gathering. And it could be something done on a different project. It's not one size fits all. So we have to evaluate the needs for this segment of the project before we say we can or we can't. So after evaluating the parking needs from the public perspective and from the analysis perspective, we have to see what needs to be on the road and what's not, in order for us to follow our NEPA process, environmental process, and make sure that we are accommodating all sorts of commuters out there. So I just want to remind everyone on the call, this is just a data gathering. We're not making any determination. We're just collecting your input. That's all. Yes, David, go ahead.
All right, yeah. So that's cool that you guys are still open to looking at other alternatives. So I guess I'm begging
David,
you guys to.
can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I guess I'm begging you guys, please come up with a way to find at least one alternative that has protected cycle track. I mean, what if you removed the lane of parking and had a bi-directional one on one side? Clinton Street in Chicago, I brought it up another meeting, has the same thing with dedicated bike signals.
You know what, David, let me ask you and Nick something. Maybe I'm not really 100% familiar with it. Doesn't the city of Milwaukee have a bike map that you can follow and do? And it's safer and more protected?
Yeah, but I mean, it's
Okay.
an arterial street. You wonder why cyclists aren't using these streets. It's because you continually put in low effort, low quality infrastructure. If you had protected cycle track there, I bet you would see exponentially more people biking along that route. But for me to get to work, Wells Street is probably the safest and most direct route for me to bike to work west of the river from the east side.
And I'm not disagreeing with you, David, at all. I'm just saying is we have to, it's not one size fits all. It's not because it works in Chicago, it's going to work on Wells Street here.
I've been all over the world, all over the U.S. I've lived in other places in the U.S. that had better bike infrastructure, and it's a continual failing with Milwaukee. And honestly, if I leave Milwaukee to move somewhere else, this is going to be one of the top reasons why, because we're just not getting it done here.
Okay, thank you.
Agree. Milwaukee is very far behind its peer cities.
I'm sorry, sir. Can you state your name and just speak a little louder so we can hear you?
Sorry, I said Milwaukee is far behind its comparable peer cities with comparable infrastructure for bike.
Jose, you can go ahead and unmute your
Yeah,
microphone.
Changing this topic a little bit, I was curious about this option C, which is the only option that removes parking from Van Buren to Prospect. I guess if the parking isn't utilized, I see no reason to have it there. But I'm slightly concerned that part of the extra space is just using to increase the driving lanes. Is there, nothing else that could be done with the space that is gained by getting rid of parking versus, giving a foot to each driving lane? I guess that's kind of the question. So is that something that was considered?
So I'll respond to your question. Basically, so this parking study was taken a few months back on over a 1 day stretch between several different hours. Being in unusual times like we are now, and with businesses, some closed, some open, parking numbers may not have been accurately seen that day compared to what it normally is. Being that I work right on Wells Street. Generally, the area is used for parking pretty highly. So cars wouldn't be able to use that as an extra lane. Also, it's on this end, there's not a lot of traffic. It's 2,600 vehicles per day. It's a low speed road. People aren't using the parking lane to pass on the right. It's kind of used as a residential stretch in that little segment, that few block segment.
Yeah, sorry. I guess maybe I wasn't clear. So you are presenting as an option. It's option C would be removing the parking lane. So are you saying that it's not a real option that would
I'm not
be
saying
considered?
no. I'm not saying it's not a real option, but
Okay, so if it
just,
is, and and it will be considered, I guess I was just curious why the decision was made to just add a foot to each driving lane versus, I don't know, expanding the terraces a little bit more, maybe you can expand the sidewalks if they're already kind of locked in, expanding the bike lane a little bit more, adding, planters, adding some space for seating. I'm just brainstorming ideas, I guess. Why the extra foot to the driving lanes in this option C is my question.
So with this option, we kept it at 44 feet, which is what the existing roadway is. That would minimize impacts to utilities and keep costs down. If you start changing roadway cross sections, you start increasing impacts and increasing costs. In this option, we gave it to the driving lane because there's one lane in each direction and 12 feet is comfortable. Could it be changed to 11-foot driving lanes and some kind of 7-foot bike lane or something like that? Yes. That would be the input that we would like to hear today.
So I guess I would support that. And I just wanted to say I would definitely support, bump outs and things like that for pedestrians along this road. Especially if we're trying to focus on pedestrianization. So just getting those comments in. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do see Marie or Mary's hand raised.
Yes, hi.
Hi.
Thank you for all this information. Just a couple comments. I live on Wells, and I am not in favor of reducing parking. There's, the parking study during the pandemic. I mean, there's definitely much less traffic in the area. But under normal circumstances, that parking is really important. So I'm not in favor of reducing parking. As far as the bike lanes, I agree. I don't think really that they're the safest way for bikers to get around. I think it's safer to just be in the regular traffic area. I do really like the terrace areas and the sidewalk areas, especially around Cathedral Square. I mean, it's a very popular space. So having more area for just more than just the sidewalk, especially with all the activities that are going to be coming back. I think that that's going to be really, really nice, and adding more trees. So I'm not in favor of reducing trees or spending the extra money to make raised bike lanes. You know, in Wisconsin, where we have limited time, where people mostly are biking anyways, and not being able to do that really citywide doesn't really make sense to me. That's really all I had to say on that.
Thanks, Mary.
Thank you. Appreciate your input.
Is there anyone else here on Wells Street that lives on Wells Street that has any comment on parking usage?
So if no one has any comments now, Nick, if you guys can bring up the last slide with our contact information, so people can take like a snapshot of it or just write it down or whatever that may be, so they can contact us later either via email or phone. So we don't want to limit it to this only timeline today.
Right, and we do have on our website, milwaukee.gov/DPW/wells, we have a online comment form, and we would really appreciate getting feedback and comments by June 18th. As well, you can sign up to receive project updates directly on our website. I do see that Kyle's hand is raised. You can go ahead, Kyle.
Thanks, Megan. Just wanted to say, thanks for having this meeting and giving everybody a space to talk about the project. This is really important. The downtown plan that's now 10 years old really signaled out Wells Street as an important street to make some changes to. And I'm always advocating for great streets and more pedestrian and bicycle friendly streets. And I do agree with a lot of what was said here, but I also want to give you guys a little credit, because I think the alternatives that you're showing are a big improvement. One of the primary goals for the street back when we did the plan was to widen the sidewalks, because there is such great pedestrian activity and sidewalk cafes and things like that. So I really appreciate that the sidewalks are widened, that there'll be a tree lawn. I think there may be room for other alternatives to take into account of what some of the people said, but I hope that larger sidewalk and terrace remains. There was a few comments about bump outs. Really would love to see bump outs wherever possible. Would be great. One thing that didn't come up was green infrastructure. I know that the trees and terrace themselves are green infrastructure, but if there's any way, or there's any grants or anything to tie another layer onto this, and maybe it's pervious pavement in the parking lanes or other things like that, that would be really great. You showed kind of two alternatives for west of Van Buren. I would support the narrower one. I would almost go as far to say if 10-foot lanes could be, if exception could be made for 10-foot lanes east of Van Buren, maybe we could even do the same west of Van Buren, since we're building new curbs anyway, and just further kind of expand that pedestrian space. Other than that, I think, removing the continuous center left turn lane was a really big gesture. To make the sidewalks wider, you have to make some trade-offs, and I'm glad that that's the one that went. Overall, I'm really pleased to see these changes. I'll also add too, as a plug, there was a lot of talk about kind of long-term planning, and I know our DPW's multimodal unit really works hard to think long-term about the networks. And also later this year, we're going to be kicking off an update to our downtown plan, and I encourage everyone who's interested in public space and downtown to get engaged with that effort later on this year.
Great, thanks for plugging that in. I do see that Ben has his hand raised. If you would like to unmute your microphone.
Hi there. I'm joining this late, but I was listening to the audio on my way home from work. I wanted to explain that I live in the neighborhood and I do bike commute to work in the Alverno neighborhood almost every day of the week. I'm also the one behind mappingmilwaukee.com, which is a hand-drawn digital map of the bike lanes and trails in the county, which I made last year because I was frustrated with the county bike maps not having been updated since 2011. So I'm very familiar with the bike infrastructure in the city. And I have to say, I'm completely in favor of removing as much parking as possible and creating ideally a protected bike lane west of Van Buren. I heard Aaron's comments earlier about dedicated striped bike lanes and David's as well. And I'm in complete agreement. There's a saying among bicycle commuters that paint doesn't save lives. And my number one fear is being doored. I feel like it's only a matter of time, and it's not a pleasant way to commute, frankly, or even to ride recreationally. So if there's any possibility whatsoever that a protected bike lane or bidirectional cycle track be implemented on Wells Street for any section, I think that's of paramount importance to not only protect the existing commuters, but also to give Aaron's 3-year-old a bikeable downtown network when he's old enough, because as I think someone mentioned, what we do here now will be this way for quite a long time. And it's important to not only cater to the existing road users, especially the most vulnerable road users, but to create a space, a network, and a city such as others like Madison and Chicago that create bicyclists and give people the option to feel comfortable commuting or recreating as they feel most comfortable and safe. So I would encourage you all to check out mappingmilwaukee.com to get a better sense of where the bike lanes and trails are in the county, because as it stands now, there really isn't a tight network of even bike lanes, traditional striped dedicated bike lanes in downtown. And it is tough to get along, especially Wells Street, where the pavement crack appears on the left stripe, which is just asking to catch bike tires and throw someone under the wheels of a car.
Thank you, Ben. Really appreciate your input.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work with that map. I see that Rebecca's hand is raised. If you would like to go ahead.
Actually, this is a kind of a question for Ben on something he said. Are you, and maybe I didn't hear the very beginning of this, are you proposing directional protected bike lane?
I think that would be great if that's possible. I'm thinking of the bidirectional cycle track along Mayfair Road, and I believe it's Harbor Drive outside the Summerfest, one of the Summerfest main gates. I'd like to see more of those. They're all over Boston and Madison and Chicago and plenty of other cities like Milwaukee. And I think it's time that Milwaukee do all it can do to join cities like it.
Ben, where on Mayfair Road?
I believe it's north of the Hank Aaron.
Oh, okay. I just want to have an idea so I could, go out
Sure.
there and take a look at it.
Paint doesn't save lives. People are going to get doored, and it is fatal. As many protected bike lanes, whether they're parking protected or Jersey barrier protected, I'm so surprised that even the North Avenue and Locust Avenue bridges don't have continuous Jersey barriers, and that they only exist at the start of and end of each intersection. I think many of us are probably familiar with those plastic bollards like on Holly Road and North and Locust being taken out by reckless drivers immediately following implementation. And plastic doesn't save lives any better than paint. Jersey barriers are cheap, they're effective, and I can't imagine that a 3 or 4 foot wide piece of concrete would really, it's certainly not aesthetic for a place like Cathedral Square and Wells, but the alternatives exist, and there has to be a better solution than simply striping bike lanes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So a couple examples were shared in the chat box. I'm just trying to read through and catch up to see if there's any questions I missed, Nick and Christine. Will we do another parking study, maybe as COVID restrictions are being lifted, will we go back out there to get a better understanding, real picture, snapshot of parking?
So I'll let you answer that, Nick, but let me tell you something. There was a very good point brought up that some of those studies were done during the pandemic. It doesn't have a good reflection of the number of parking out there. So we can do another parking study, but also I want to make sure from the outcome of this PIM and the public feedback, we have to analyze that too and see where we stand today and where does the majority of the public feedback is. So there are going to be a couple of elements to look into it once we close the deadline for this input and feedback.
Thanks, Christine. And yeah, in the first meeting, we had several business owners attend the meeting, and they were pretty much like, we can't lose any parking. That would hurt our business. And so that's something we have to keep in mind as well. There are the roadway users, and then there's also the people that live and work and own businesses right on this stretch as well. So we have to, like I said, balance all the uses for what makes sense for everybody.
I did see Rebecca hand raised.
Yeah,
okay.
I'm only going to make a short comment about parking. Any other concerns I have, I'll send directly to Nick and everyone else. But to piggyback on parking, also one of the biggest complaints I hear from the disabled community is there's no accessible parking spaces for them. So they have no other choice. They can't bike or walk very far. And usually when I have meetings with people with mobility disabilities, I can guarantee they'll be 15 to 30 minutes late for the meeting because they're looking for parking.
Very good point. Thank you, Rebecca. Ben?
I agree. I'm sorry, Rebecca. I didn't mean to imply that we should strike all parking whatsoever. People with mobility devices and who are disabled in some way are also vulnerable road users, and we need to be doing as much as we can to accommodate them as well. It's the people driving in from the suburbs who expect to be able to park directly in front of their destination that I think, most rankled by. Downtown is, after all, crawling with parking garages and surface lots, and research abounds that multimodal transportation alternatives only increase and generate local economies.
Thank you.
Mary has her hand raised.
Mary, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to say on the parking, I don't think that people expect to be able to park right in front of the destination that they're going to. But as someone who frequents a lot of businesses and works downtown, I don't think we need to make it harder for businesses to be able to attract residents by telling them they can go pay and park in a parking garage and walk to their business. We need good parking down there, and we need to support the restaurants and the bars there. And I don't think encouraging people to go pay to park inside a parking garage is going to help support business.
David, I see that your hand is raised.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of studies that show that when you institute good bike streets, pedestrian-oriented streets, that revenue to local businesses actually goes up. And why should we care about parking for bars? If you're going to the bar, you shouldn't be driving there anyway. So.
Well, not everybody that goes to bars actually drinks. And I'm not
Well,
anti-bike, but
people are drunk driving here all the time. It's epidemic.
All I'm saying is that people are not going to be in favor of going and paying to park in a parking garage when there's parking available on the street. So I'm not anti-bike. I support all the ideas about keeping bikers safe and all that kind of thing. I'm just not in favor of reducing parking.
So these are, great perspectives and opinions. I do see that Ben's hand is raised. If you would like to go ahead, Ben.
I wanted to second what David said. I don't think we should be catering or offering more parking or existing parking to bar heavy or bar centric streets. I would like to see some data, and I have to admit I'm not familiar with this, but I would like to see some data concerning parking garage capacities and surface lot capacities in the downtown area. I think I would be willing to bet that the data would indicate that capacity remains, and having people walk a few more blocks from the bars can well, only be a good thing.
So Ben, I have a question for you. So, and this is Christine. What data are you looking to get? I'm not clear here.
Oh, I'd like to see how full the downtown parking garages and lots are during, for instance, peak time.
We're not really debating between parking structure and on-street parking. What we can focus and what's in our hand is to either remove parking or maintain it based on the utilization of those parking spots.
Right.
We cannot go and do a study about how much it's going to cost and how full is going to be the parking structure. This is outside of the project and will not be done.
Sure, I completely understand. I didn't mean to suggest that this project should concern itself with initiating research into downtown parking.
Exactly.
But I can't imagine that a few more spots along Wells would really make much of a difference.
Well, what I'm saying is this is from your perspective, and I want the entire group here to understand data speaks louder than my opinion or yours. So once we're done with this study and we can complete it, if you can reach out to me or Nick, we'll be more than happy to share that with you. All our decisions are data driven.
Great, thank you. Definitely, agreed.
David?
Yeah, so I guess just a side note on the parking. I mean, if the street parking is continually full, wouldn't that logic dictate that the city is probably not charging enough for parking? I mean, ideally, don't you want to set the rates so you have X amount of space empty at any given time, just so people aren't circling for parking?
Okay, this is outside of the subject and the topic of this project. So I'm sorry, I'm not going to have this recorded here. The charging of the parking or not is not part of this discussion. The discussion here is the utilization of the parking slots, whether they are utilized or not.
And this is Mary again. I just want to also mention, as far as the parking, it's not just parking for bars. I wouldn't call that area bar heavy. There's lots of other businesses. There's a school there. There's the cathedral there. There's all kinds of other businesses there. It's not just people parking to go to bars.
So I see comments on the chat box here saying that Wells and Jefferson are largely bars, which is correct. So let me just give you a different perspective, David and Ben, and this is just my personal perspective. I go down there a lot to visit with friends, and personally, I don't drink, but I park there because I have nowhere else to park, and I walk. So we cannot assume that every single person parking out there is just visiting the bars. I don't think that's a fair statement. So we have to be careful here how we assume things.
There's a lunch rush as well. I mean,
Yes, let's not do assumptions. Let's not assume what this car is going where. The utilization is what's going to drive this.
and I appreciate, the comments for wanting, safe for higher level bicycle accommodations. As far as a bidirectional protected lane, it's probably not the best location to introduce the first one in the city as a 0.44 mile stretch on a low volume road. If you're going to introduce something like that, it would make more sense on a longer stretch, more heavily used road. But on this small project that doesn't really connect well to the west, it wouldn't, for connectivity purposes, it wouldn't make a lot of sense. And it would be introducing kind of confusion. The first one in the city, and it's in an area that's 0.44 miles. So it's just something to consider.
I see that David's hand is raised.
Yeah, I'm just curious what you mean by when it's not well connected to the west, because like I said, I bike through this every day at thousands of miles out of Milwaukee, as I said before. And Wells, to me at least, to get west of the river is far and away the least stressful route. And but I mean, obviously it's not great, but it's less worse than all the other options. So.
And there's some segments where it's not. I think there's a block or two where it's not marked, and then it's on the on-street marked lanes.
Ben, you can go ahead.
I would agree with David. For bicyclists going west from either Prospect Avenue, the east side, or the Oak Leaf Trail, Mason is a non-starter because, of course, it ends at the river. And Kilbourne is great, but, of course, 6th Street is a gauntlet of traffic. And a bicyclist would be forced to turn either north or south, presumably south to Wells, which is great because it's got fairly wide bike lanes that run behind the public library and through Marquette. I just wanted to throw out a supporting opinion from someone who uses this almost daily.
I didn't know if we wanted to go through the options one more time, or is it all the same people?
Oh, we've not had any new attendees sign in since we started. So that is the formal presentation. We can continue having a conversation if questions or comments come up. We are here till 7. And I'm just trying to catch up on the chat box just to see if we've missed anything.
Oops, other way.
Sandra does bring up a good point that, with the theaters and performance centers, people are, looking everywhere for street parking or parking lots in the downtown area. So thank you, Sandra.
I'm familiar with the two. Well, you can see in this lower picture right here, there's a parking structure right here and a parking structure right here. And this one always fills up. And this one is generally very close to capacity at all times. I remember, I can't remember his name, Ben was asking about parking structures, and these two are heavily used and utilized. I mean, you can see in the pictures down here that in these pictures, the parking lanes are pretty much full. So it's just, I want to keep that into consideration. And, it doesn't seem like a lot of people that live along this street are attending this meeting. But I just want to, do what's, like I said, balance the needs of all the users.
Nick and Megan, I had another thought. If the preferred solution in the end does have contiguous parking lanes, I know a lot of the businesses on this street have taken advantage of our Active Streets for Business program to have parklets in the parking lane where they actually have outdoor dining. And that might be an opportunity to kind of engage those businesses to see if they'd potentially like to make something like that permanent, where you have very, kind of extended bump outs, or, maybe that zone isn't, we still accommodate the street parking, but don't necessarily try to maximize it. You can find ways to either add green infrastructure or outdoor dining or even wider sidewalks. Just another thought, because I think some of those businesses maybe over the past year have come to really appreciate that extra sidewalk space.
And if they are west of Van Buren, their sidewalks are about to get a lot larger, which would help in the sidewalk seating areas that you're talking about. The area where it becomes a more difficult choice is east of Van Buren. Van Buren to Prospect. This option provides the parking, the bicycles, and the driving lanes. Nobody has really said anything about that option. This option widens the street, like I said, and would have some impacts to the terrace area, and it would require the scope of the project to change to a reconstruct. This option removes the parking lane and then provides the 2 bicycle lanes and the 2 driving lanes. I've been working very close with the city's multimodal section when coming up with these alternatives for this stretch, and the reasoning behind no protected lanes at this point as far as an option was because of the low volumes and the low speeds. This is not an area where it's a raceway like some other streets in the city. So I have been talking with the different sections and getting all the input to come up with these alternatives, and we definitely are considering these bicyclists on every project.
Just reading the comments, we don't consider bike lanes under 5 feet, correct? That's like our minimum width.
Yeah, we generally don't put anything that's less than 5 feet.
Okay. There was just an example of in Shorewood, there's a 4-foot wide bike lane in some places. So that's increasing the likelihood of getting doored.
We have to be careful here, Megan. Let's not talk on behalf of any other municipalities. So we don't state something that is not correct. This is a statement by Ben. I read that here, but we do not agree or disagree with that.
Yep, I'm not providing an opinion. I'm just reading the comment.
Okay. Just want to make sure that whoever is listening are clearly understanding that.
Unfortunately, Mike Mamsden of the multimodal section wasn't able to make this meeting, but I will bring this input and share it with him, and we will have a discussion about what was the comments received at this meeting.
Nick, can you please invite me to that meeting?
Sure.
Nick, can you move the slides to like the contact information so they have? Yep, thank you.
I just wanted to add thank you for all of the enthusiasm for and passion for bicycling and safety. And we are just, like I said, like Christine said earlier, we're taking notes and we'll take it into consideration for our proposed design. And Christine just said something very similar to that in the chat box.
Yeah, what a coincidence, you and I saying the same thing. Yeah, it may sound sometimes we're not on the same page, but I guarantee you we are. We're listening to you.
So I'll kind of go over what some of the things that were said today about the alternatives. People liked the larger sidewalks. They would like to see bump outs considered. They would like to see protected bicycle accommodations. or some kind of accommodation, whether it be raised or on the other side of the parking lane. There was some people that were in support of keeping parking, or yeah, there was some support in keeping parking and some support in removing parking. And yeah, that was pretty much what it was. As far as Broadway to Van Buren, people wanted, there was a comment that the narrower cross section would be better than the 1 foot wider cross section. And then as far as Van Buren to Prospect, most of the conversation was between the trade-offs between higher level bicycle facilities and parking.
I would include like the green infrastructure in areas where there's possibility of reducing, the driving lane, where we can implement green infrastructure or use that space for pedestrians or bike lanes. I think you covered it.
Ben has his hand raised.
Ben, feel free to go ahead.
Of course, I'm fully in support of green infrastructure as well, but I'm wondering if green striped bike lanes are in consideration as well.
Like
and/or bike boxes, as are found in Wauwatosa.
Generally, in the past, we've used the green bike lanes in conflict zones, like in front of a freeway on-ramp, or where there's going to be a conflict point between turning vehicles and bike lane. So I won't say that it's not possible to be used, but if it was used, it would likely be in conflict areas.
Such as Van Buren, for instance?
Potentially.
That would be great. Thank you.
When we were talking about the schedule, where we are right now in summer 2021 at the second meeting, if the proposed options aren't kind of definitive after this meeting, we may have to have more discussion, potentially another meeting in between here. Either that, or then when everything is, when the proposed design is chosen to be moved forward, the website would be updated, and everyone on Megan's list would be updated with the information. But I just want to keep everyone apprised of the potential ways of moving forward and presenting the information to everyone.
I already see some emails come in of people signing up from our website, so that's great that we're building that outreach list.
I do want to thank everyone that did come to the meeting and provided input. It's very useful in coming up with the proposed design. We will stick around till 7 in case anyone else signs in that hasn't, or if anyone else thinks of anything else that they want to add.
Thanks, Ben. We appreciate your input. Have a good night. So our attendees so far outside of the city and DOT is John Campbell. Would you guys be okay if I stop recording it, just so for editing purposes I don't have to remove all this dead air?
Yeah,
Yes, go ahead.
Okay,
I'm okay with
I'm going to stop recording, but we're still here till 7.
Correct.